Hello and welcome to another Stamp with Amy K YouTube Live. And today I've got a fun project made with some more new goodies from the upcoming online exclusives. These will be available to order beginning on the 6th of May. I keep wanting to say March, and I had something I was sending out to some team members today, and I had all the wrong dates on it. The wrong month and all sorts, and I'm just like, I don't know what day it is. But anyway, it is May 6th when all the new goodies will come out. I'm going to slide my screen down here just a hair since it looks like we got it up a little bit higher. Yeah, so May 6th, all these new goodies will be available to order. There are a lot of new items coming from the upcoming mini. See, I don't know why I'm struggling today. Gosh, my brain is just gone. So from the annual catalog, there will be lots of new things coming, but this is actually one of the items from the new online exclusives that'll be starting on the 6th of May. So when you go out and start snooping around at the online exclusives and, whatever, and just keep in mind, it'll all be out in the online store. Some of the stuff is only going to be in the online exclusives. Some of it's going to be in the catalog. So I see a bunch of people hopping in here. I see Mary Ruth, and I think Dee Dee was there, and Pam, and Karen, and Tanya, Danette, Gwen, Marva, Margaret, Debbie, Judy, Sherry, everybody, thanks for hopping in. I appreciate you all being here. So thanks for coming and hanging out for a little bit. This is actually a pretty quick and easy card, so hopefully it won't take us too long to get it finished up, especially since the die cutting and embossing is all done with one little pass through the die cutting machine. So this is it. Hopefully you can see it's got embossed with a 3D embossing folder, and it's a hybrid 3D embossing folder, so it cuts and embosses the sailboat image in it if you want to use the dies with it, or you can just use the embossing folder, but we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through making the card. Am I still recovering from onstage? Kind of. Yes, I'm going to blame it on onstage brain. That, and of course my daughter's spring break is next week, so I'm getting ready to go out of town and we're not going very long, but just for a couple days. She and I are going to go out and visit some family, and so I'm just like, I don't know what day it is. So anyway, I just know that I'm here and live, and hopefully this is the right time and the right day. So thanks again, everybody, for hopping in. I see a few more people are joining us. So that's what we're going to be making. So the stamp set is called Sunrise Sailing. And again, I love the sentiments in it. This is a good one. I think graduation is kind of what I was thinking of for this one. Congratulations cards, and then there's a happy retirement and a best wishes. So lots of good sentiments in this one. And again, kind of some nice images. These would be super easy if you actually wanted to color them. You can do that, or you can be like me and stamp and use the two-step stamping pieces of this and just stamp your images instead of coloring them. So whatever you want to do with it. It's a fun little image and really easy to use. This is the hybrid embossing folder, and when you order the hybrid embossing folder, it actually includes the dies with it. So don't be confused when you go to order it. If you order the bundle, you get the stamp set, the dies, and the embossing folder. If you order just the hybrid embossing folder, you get the embossing folder and the dies. So that's what it is when they call it a hybrid embossing folder. I don't know why they picked that name, but they did. Nobody asked me. So it's confusing, but just wanted to make sure that you knew that the hybrid embossing folder does in fact include the dies with it. So embossing folder, it's one of the 3D embossing folders, so it's one of the thicker ones, but you can use it just for embossing like that. You can use it, and I'll show you in a second, with the die to cut and emboss at the same time, or you can just use the dies alone. So however you want to use it, you can use it, but just know that it's multi-use, and it's very cool. So, all right, so let me set this mess kind of aside here. And we'll get going. A couple other things here. So I did use one of the circle dies and it's the third smallest one, to cut out my sentiment here in the background. And I kind of tried to make it look like a sun. I don't know whether I pulled that part off very well. And when I make my actual card here today, I'm going to try to scoot the boat over just a little bit so that the sun fits a little bit better on it. This was like an after the fact thing that I was thinking, oh, this will fit perfectly, and then it kind of didn't. So anyway, we'll try a little different. So, all right. And Bonnie, I would definitely never tell that you're watching from work, so we won't tell. All right. So stylish shapes are the dies that I use for cutting out the sentiment. set those aside too. Online exclusives, I was just yakking about those. So again, online exclusives, the ones on the left here, this is a very small sampling of some of the current online exclusives. The ones on the right here are some of the upcoming online exclusives that'll be coming on the 6th of May. So make sure you're out and checking those out. Anytime you're out shopping on Stampin'Up.com, just click on that little menu button. And then go down to the online exclusives. There's a little dot there. So yeah, you can check out all the online exclusives. You just don't want to miss out on any of those. They kind of come and go. They're not tied to any catalog. Some of them get reordered, some of them don't. So if you see something out there that you like, just go ahead and grab it now, and then you don't have to worry about whether you'll get it or not. All right. So that is that. Speaking of catalogs, well, let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing here first, and as I get gluing, I'll yak about catalogs. This is a piece of blueberry bushel cardstock that's cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2. If you prefer the side fold card base, which is your standard 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored at 4 1/4 down the left-hand side, it will work just as well with this card. I just didn't happen to have a card base cut like that, so I used my top fold one, which is my preferred card base. And I've got a piece of blueberry bushel card or designer series paper from the Regals 6x6 designer series paper pack, and I've cut it down to about 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm going to glue these two together, and as I'm gluing catalogs, I was able to order my catalogs for my customers today, so they will be shipping out. Hopefully I will have them within a week or so. It kind of depends on how quickly they leave the warehouse, but they take about a week to get to me once they do. And then I'll be packing them up and sending them out to my customers as soon as I have them, so you can be looking for them to arrive probably no later than the 15th of April, but I'm hopeful that they'll be out to you quite a bit earlier than that. So just keep an eye on your mailbox for a little daisy printed mailer from me. So, all right, so we adhered that together with a little bit of liquid glue. Next thing is I've got a piece of pool party cardstock, and I'm just going to emboss this piece. Let me grab that embossing folder with the Sunrise Sailing 3D embossing folder. And like I said, when I originally made this, I kind of put the boat a little bit more centered when I ran it through the embossing folder. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to today try to scooch it over just a little bit and have a little bit more room over here for my sentiment when I go to actually put it on the card front. So, and I'm also going to scoot it up a little bit towards the top, so we have about even, well, a little bit more sky than water, I guess. That was my goal here on it. And then the Stampin' Up! Embossing folders, most of them do have a little line that runs along it, and that's just there to help you to line up your paper straight if you want it to be straight in your embossing folder. Just line up the edge here, kind of, even across. I feel like I'm scooted a little bit. Yeah, there we go. I think that's a little bit straighter. So just line it up relatively straight, and then you should get a nice straight embossed image. So let me go run this through. Actually, I keep thinking of other things. So when you use the hybrid or the 3D embossing folders, the cutting system, whatever one you're using, this is a Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine from Stampin' Up!, but it will work in other cutting platforms as well. What you want to use is the base plate of whatever your cutting platform is. This, again, it has to be a standard cutting system. I know there are some that are real narrow and whatever. This won't work in that, but standard cutting system, there are lots of them like it. Got just your base plate down underneath. You're going to put your paper inside the 3D embossing folder and put it on top of the base plate. No tabs, nothing on top of it. And then you're going to take the specialty plate, which this I think is specific to Stampin' Up, but it fits in other machines. So I'll just leave you with that. It will work in the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine as part of the standard plates that you get, but you can buy it separately, and I think it's like $12-ish. And it's definitely worth the investment if you struggle with the hybrid embossing folders, the thicker ones, or the 3D embossing folders. This plate will make all the difference in the world in your embossing. So I'm going to go run this through the embossing machine. You never noticed it? Yeah, if somebody hadn't told me about the line, Amanda, I would have never noticed it either. So, all right. So there we go. Got our nicely embossed image here. Throw that aside again. And then I'm going to grab a blending brush, and I've got Coastal Cabana ink, and we are going to use that to add a little bit of ink to the area that's got the waves on it. Come on, my fingers are definitely not wanting to work right. So, all right. And I'm not going to be like too terribly careful about how I put this on. It can be a little lighter in some areas, a little darker in others. It doesn't really matter since it's waves and it's not supposed to look necessarily extremely even. But I want it to look relatively even. I mean, you know, I guess it depends on the look you want. If you want it to be a little darker in some areas, a little lighter, all good. You can put on as much or as little of the Coastal Cabana ink as you'd like. If you prefer to use Pool Party with it, you can certainly do that as well. Coastal Cabana for me just makes a little bit more, makes it a little darker, a little faster. With Pool Party, I have to put on quite a few more layers of ink than I do with Coastal Cabana to get the same look. So, all right, going to close that up and I'm going to stuck my fingers in the ink already. Gosh. And then the next thing that I did, you may or may not have noticed it when I showed you the sample here. I've got a little bit of white ink on the clouds, and I'm going to show you quickly how I did that. So I've got my Stampin' White Craft ink, the white ink. I don't know if it's Whisper White anymore, Basic White, whatever it is. I'm just going to put a little bit of that on a block, and I may need to add a little bit more depending on how many layers thick I go with this. And then I've got a little sponge dauber that I use. This is my white, and again, it's still labeled as Whisper White because I've had this forever and a day. Back when we had Whisper White, I got this. So I'm going to do just kind of tap a little bit in it, tap around a little bit so that I don't get a big glob of the ink. And then we're just going to lightly tap it over the... I was trying not to get a big glob of ink, and I got one anyway. But just tap it over the clouds. And the good news about this ink is that it does stay wet for a little while. So if you get a glob of ink like I did there, you can just sort of take your dauber and then move the ink around a little bit to a spot where you want it to be instead. So I'm just trying to get it to where the clouds actually have the ink on it. If you get ink a little bit off the clouds, it's perfectly okay. Again, this isn't one of those really like detailed images that you need to be stressed out about. Oh my gosh, you know, I think I just inked a bird there. No, I didn't. That's a cloud. It's like, oh no, did I put ink on one of the birds? Nope. So I do have happy little clouds on here. So although, like I said, I almost thought I had for a moment, I thought I had inked a bird. Not that that would be the end of the world, but it might just look a little weird. But that's okay. All right. Again, just adding a little more ink. Gonna maybe come back over here and maybe just add a little bit more on this side. And these clouds are probably going to be a little darker than the ones that I had on my original card, which is just fine. Again, you can put as little or as much ink on it as you want to. This is one of the inks that takes a little bit more time to dry. So if you want to hurry it up and make sure it's dry, or stick your finger right in it like I just did. Golly. Want to make sure that it's dry before you move on to the next thing. I'm just going to try to be careful with mine because I did not grab my heat tool. But we have the heat tool. You can use either the level 1 or the level 2 setting on it, and it will dry the ink just very nicely for you. So, all right. I've got a piece of basic red, real red. Cardstock that is cut to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I probably didn't tell you to start with. My Coastal Cabana was cut to 3 5/8 inches by 4 7/8 inches. So it will layer nicely on my slightly smaller than card front sized panel of Real Red cardstock. Just going to use a little Stampin' Seal to adhere these together. I'm going to put a little extra across the middle since this is one of those 3D embossed papers. They're pretty bumpy when you do the embossing with them. Then we're just going to roughly line this up and stick it here to the card front. And I'm going to try to be careful not to stick my fingers in the white ink just yet. We'll try to go around it. So there we go. I don't know. Like I said, it's between on stage and then trying to get ready to leave this weekend. I'm just like a mess. I don't know what day it is. I'm struggling with words. And anyway, it's all good. I'm sure you all are really interested in listening to me ramble on. Good heavens. I'll try to get myself together and not make too many more mistakes before the end of the video, but I make no promises. So, all right. So I've got some more Stampin' Dimensionals. I do chop my dimensionals in half. You can use whole ones if you like whole ones better, or you can just put a backing on there because that'll be useful. That is what I wanted on there, the actual dimensional. So, hey, thanks for hopping in, Tammy. I see you're here. All right. Get the backings picked off here. And we're just going to flip it over and put it here on the card front. And again, we're just going to roughly center it and line it up. This, obviously, there are lines on your designer series paper on here, so it makes it a little easier to keep it straight on your card front. But, you know, if not, you put it on your grid paper, line it up, and sort of helps you to figure out what's straight and what's not on here. All right. So next piece, this is the fun part where we're going to stamp and cut and emboss the little boat image. And so I've got my large boat image from the Sunrise Sailing stamp set here on a block, and I've got Blueberry Bushel ink. And we're just going to stamp it on a piece of basic white cardstock. All the cardstock cuts and everything will be out on my blog tomorrow for this card, and I'll have a PDF tutorial out there as well. So I'll link up to the blog post as soon as it goes live around 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time tomorrow. So you can look for that then. And if you're here after that point, you can find the link in the description. So you'll be able to see what I've done, cardstock cuts and all that good stuff. And I've got Real Red ink that I'm going to stamp these are like the little stripes on the sails. So I'm going to ink that up with Real Red ink and then roughly line it up here on my sails, and then we're going to stamp it. And again, it's one of those images, it's a little swooshy, so it's not designed to stamp like side to side and look perfect on there. So you can line it up however you think it looks best and stamp it that way. That's kind of how I liked it, and it ended up being pretty much the same on both of my images. So, all right, then I've got Pecan Pie for the last little piece here, and that is for the actual boat image itself. And what is it with me and my fingers in the ink today? I think that is the third one I've done. So I ought to have multicolored fingers by the time I get done. And the craft white ink is always a pleasure to try to get off your fingers later on. All right, there we go. Got that stamped in Pecan Pie ink. And I'll try not to stick my fingers in anything else. So now I'm going to pull out my hybrid embossing folder and the dies that coordinate with it. Again, when you order this bundle, the bundle includes the stamp set, dies, and embossing folder. If you just order the hybrid dies, you will just get the embossing folder and the dies. I don't even think you can purchase them separately. So yeah, so if you just look for the hybrid embossing folder, you're going to automatically get both of these. So when you're going to put this in here, you're just going to find your large sailboat die, going to put it roughly over the top of the sailboat, and then it kind of locks into place. It doesn't like snap in where you could flip it upside down and shake it around and it wouldn't fall out, but you can definitely tell when it's in place in the right spot on the embossing folder. And then you're going to take your image and put it here, and then you're just going to scoot it around until it lines up where you want it to be inside the embossing folder and the dies. And the main thing you want to do is just make sure that the little mast and the bottom of the boat are lined up, and then the sails should fall in accordingly. So that was what I aimed for, was to get this straight up and down and get the bottom of it lined up. And then you're just going to hold it together and run it through your die cutting machine. And it's the same sandwich that you use for the regular 3D embossing folders. So it's the base plate, this folder with the paper inside it, and then that number 4 plate that goes on the top of it. And one thing I forgot to say, every time you use an embossing folder, whether it's hybrid or not, you want to put the hinged side through first. That helps them to last a little bit longer. If you put them the other way, it pushes against it and breaks the hinges a lot faster. Ask me how I know, because I've done it. But just wanted to let you know, put the hinge side through first. All right, I'm going to go run this through the machine. All right, and I've had people ask me on these embossing folders if they are going to break down faster. They potentially may. I have never had one where the die has like caused damage to the embossing folder or made it so it's unusable or anything like that. And I can't say that I've cut out hundreds and hundreds of images with any of these, but I've probably done 50 or so images on one, and it hasn't destroyed the embossing folder yet. So just wanted you to be aware of that if you were questioning that about these embossing folders. I just think they're really cool. So as you can see, it cut out my sailboat, and obviously it also embossed the white paper, although I don't know how well that shows up here on the screen, but hopefully you can see it. And then the sailboat is also embossed, and again, it probably doesn't show up extremely well. It might show up a little better if I flip it over on the back side. Maybe you can see it on the unstamped side a little bit easier, but it is actually embossed, and it's a pretty cool little image in your hands. All right, I'm going to take that and we're going to line it up over the embossed image on the card front. It's such a cool embossing folder. If you don't have some of the 3D embossing folders yet, you definitely should get some. They're fun to play with. I'm just going to use glue dots here to stick the die cut piece to the card front. Make sure I got them here on the mast, and then I'm going to flip it over and actually stick them to the boat with my fingers rather than trying to keep them flipped over the other way. There we go. I'm going to put one more, I think, here in the middle just to make sure that the boat part is held down well. And then we're just going to take it and flip it over and then line it up over the top of the embossed image on the card front and then stick it down. Now, if you wanted to have a little different look, you could maybe scoot the sailboat over just a little bit, and then it would look like there's like maybe a shadow of a sailboat off in the distance or something like that, although it'd be kind of big, so you may not like that look, but you can play around with it and see what else you can do with it. All right, last piece, well, second to the last piece on the card front is I've got a piece of Lemon Lolly cardstock, and we are going to stamp the sentiment in Blueberry Bushel ink. And right here on the Lemon Lolly cardstock. So again, I thought this was a fun one. I'm going to plan on these for graduation cards and love that I can kind of customize the colors too, so I can make them be school colors if I want them to be. All right, and then we're going to grab the third from the smallest, if I can get my fingers to cooperate, these circle dies from the Stylish Shapes dies. These are one of my basic go-to dies that I use tons and tons. They're in the annual catalog. If you don't have them yet, definitely get your hands on these. And then I'm going to go run this through the die cutting machine. Now, you will need to change out your plates between when you use the hybrid embossing folder. You have to make sure you've got the cutting plate put in there. So I'm going to do that right now. So. All right. There's my little die cut. Like I said, I was attempting to make it look like a sun. I don't know whether I was successful in that or not, but that was my plan with it. So, all right, I'm going to put a couple little glue dots on here. Come on, there we go. One more. And then I'm just going to tuck it under the sailboat here. And I wanted to make sure that most of my clouds showed, and then my sentiment also still showed. So there you go. It's still not perfectly on there, but I think I actually like it a little bit better. I don't know. My original one, I think it was hanging off the edge too much. So you can decide, again, how far you want to tuck it underneath. I think it looks a little better like that, but that's just my personal opinion. Hey, Daryl, thanks for hopping in. You're on spring break already? All right. Enjoy. Ours is next week, so there you go. All right, so I've got some of the Tinsel Gems 4-pack gems here, and I've got, because they have Blueberry Bushel in it, and they're a little sparkly, so I added a couple of those to the card front here, right near my sentiment. There we go, and that is it for the card front. So it's actually pretty quick and easy to do this one. Yeah, and hopefully you can see the little white inked clouds on there, and they are dry right now. So just have to set it aside for a few minutes and they're all dry. All right, inside of the card, got a sentiment and then the little boat images that we're going to stamp again, and we'll be all done with this one. So we've got Blueberry Bushel ink for my sentiment, and I've got just the congratulations sentiment that I'm going to stamp in here. I'm going to try to line up my grid, or line up the paper on my grid paper so that I can hopefully get this stamped relatively straight. Then we're going to ink the sailboat image again and try to get that stamped on here relatively straight. There we go. Close that up, and then we're going to grab the sail image and stamp that in real red ink. And, well, I guess I should have read the whole thing. Visiting your new granddaughter. Congratulations, Daryl. That's awesome. I'm glad somebody else noticed and read it. I was just read that you were on spring break. So it's very exciting news for sure. All right. Is that your first one? Or just the newest one? I guess I don't know if you have any other grandkids. So, and then pecan pie ink. And we're going to stamp the boat image in pecan pie ink over the top here. There we go. All right, and close that up, and then you can use the die as a regular die with no embossing folder. Correct, Deb. Yep, so you can, that's the nice thing about them is they work kind of lots of different ways. You can just emboss with the embossing folder. You can emboss and die cut with the hybrid embossing folder and the dies, or you can just die cut with it. So they're an awesome set of dies. So, all right, and there we go. Put a little stamp and seal on the inside. And I better flip that image over before I had my sailboat laying face up, and I knew if I put my card anywhere near it, it was somehow going to end up with blue ink all over the front of it. All right, so sticking that to the inside of the card, and then we're going to close it up here, do a quick crease with the bone folder, and we are all done for today. So let me bring back in my original card. Number 5, my goodness. You can't be that old, Daryl. You look young. I don't know. 5 grandkids. That's awesome. Congratulations on number 5. So there we go. All right. So that is it. That's the card. Super quick and easy. A little different layout on it. Just again, scooted the sailboat over a little bit on the one that I made here today. And yeah, so there you go. That's it. So this is one of those items that demonstrators, actually the pre-order started today. So if you're a demonstrator, you can get your hands on this now. Or if you are a customer, May 5th or May 6th will be the day that you can actually order this. And again, this is an online exclusive, so you won't see it in the upcoming catalog. You'll find it in the online exclusives. So let me know if you have questions about anything. Again, I'll be posting all the details on my blog tomorrow, and I'll link directly to the blog post in the description of the video, so you'll be able to find the cardstock cuts, tutorial, all that good stuff over there. And then I am going to be going live around 2 o'clock Eastern time on Friday. However, next week, Tuesday, I will be out of town, so I will not be here to do a live. So I'll plan to be live on Friday. Like I said, I have vacation brain already. Live on Friday this week. No Tuesday live, but then I'll be back the following Friday, back to hang out with you and do another live. So thanks again, everybody, for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you on Friday, and then again next week, Friday. Chat soon.